It is such a rare happenstance when John Suchenski actually has time when he's not working or when he's not tending to his wife and three kids. He's a family man in Florida, and he actually has time to join the podcast. And we're thrilled to have him, psyched to have John, an executive at ESPN, senior director of programming and acquisitions. A lot of the sports that you at home watch, the relationships with the leagues, the content that is out there is done in direct result of the work at the bargaining table that John is doing in the form of rights deals and all of that. And it's a thrill to have you on, John, on the On to Something podcast, a sports media podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, where we sort of go back and forth between talking work life and family life. And I know for you, there's got to be no dull day with what you're doing, work life and family life, as you tackle both at the same time simultaneously.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Brian. Thrilled to be here and looking forward to the chat. Yeah, I mean it's busy, and it takes a family to be able to do this stuff, right? I mean, you're in the industry, you know that it can be busy. It's 24/7, right? It doesn't stop. So so having the or finding the way to have a good work-life balance is important. And I'm fortunate to have a very supportive family and a rock star wife who manages that family when I'm on the road and stuff. But I do this not just for myself, but for them, right? To make sure that I can support them. So it's all good, but definitely a delicate balance to find, and we make it work for sure.
Speaking of that family, what would your three kids say about what you do?
So that's a great question because they don't. I don't think they fully grasp exactly what I do. They certainly know I work for Disney because they definitely reap the benefits of that. They're huge Disney fans. They can't get enough Disney and can't go enough and watch Disney Plus and everything. So they understand that I do that. And also, I've taken them to a few sporting events either that I've worked on or not. So they kind of have a small sense of it, but I don't think they fully know what I do. They always say Daddy watches a lot of television, and that's true because as you know, that is what we do, right? We put the product. We have a hand in what goes on air and making sure that we're serving the viewers with the best possible sports content here at ESPN. So I think that as they get older, they'll kind of grasp it a little bit better, but they right now it's Daddy works for Disney and Daddy watches a lot of sports on television.
And Daddy has some pretty cool signage and posters behind you of some sporting memorabilia and photos. And if I look behind you, John, how do I, if I'm you, decide what goes on that wall?
It's a good. So I've done a really good job over the last 5 years almost now in this my home office here and putting up stuff. I have a lot of stuff. You can't see 75% of it around the room, but events that I've been to or been a part of. So as we were talking about before the call, U.S. Open tennis has been kind of the one constant throughout my career at ESPN. So I've got the one of the event posters here. I got another one over there and everything. You can't even see, but top of the room here, I've got all golf flags from all the golf events that I've been to. As golf is one of the other properties that I manage here at ESPN as well too. So I try and find room for everything, but not everything gets camera visible signage, as they say in our industry. But the one important one is the one directly behind me, which is the 1996 New York Yankees
Oh.
championship and the cover of Newsday with John Wetland and the team celebrating. Now I'm a diehard Yankees fan. I was raised a Yankees fan growing up in Connecticut, and my parents being from New York and stuff. And that was the first major championship, at least for the Yankees, that in my lifetime. So that one's important to me, and that one's been a constant behind me.
So it's the most significant because it's the first that you recall as a sports fan for the Yankees. And I'm still salty from 1998, if I'm not mistaken, when my San Diego Padres lost to your Yankees in the World Series by way of a sweep. And I remember there was this controversial call at the plate where I think there was it should be called strike three, but then it was a ball, and then the next pitch came and there was a home run, and it changed the course of the series. That was a long time ago, and I was a kid, but I still remember that. And of course, the Padres haven't gotten back to the World Series, albeit they're having a nice run right now. John Suchenski is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. How many different golf events have you attended with all of the flags and all of the relics you have golf related?
Man, so I started working on golf here at ESPN in 2013, 2014. So U.S. Opens, we had the coverage for the U.S. Open up until 2014. So I went to Marion in 13. I went to Pinehurst in 14, which was sadly our last event. And since 10 years ago, we haven't covered it since, unfortunately. But and then a lot of Masters flags, which has been one of kind of the benefits and privilege of doing what we get to do, and what I get to do is having the opportunity to manage that partnership and our coverage of that great event every single year. So those ones are special. They all have the years on them, so it kind of reminds you of all the years that I've been able to go there. And then PGA Championships. We've been covering the PGA Championships since 2020. So I have a bunch of those. I'm been privileged to be able to go to those each of the last couple of years as well too. And then one Open Championship in 2014. I think I did almost all. I did 3 of the 4 events that year on the major calendar. So that was a special one as well too, given the significance and how different that is than a lot of the other golf events. But I'm a golfer at heart, so I enjoy the sport. I enjoy playing it, and those are special memories to me as well too, having those on the wall here.
I see Tiger Woods on the wall, and I remember the Tiger Slam and the way you described how many majors in a year. There's like the John Slam now. You go into 3 in 1 year. And speaking of one of those majors in Augusta, you can't top the beauty that that place has. Where do you find that course is prettiest on screen?
I mean, TV does a terrific job in showcasing it. But if you've ever been there, the first reaction anyone gets is man, I didn't know how beautiful it was. You see how beautiful it is on TV, but when you get there in person and see how pristine and beautiful it is, it just takes it to a different level. Even in the day and age of 4K and 8K now and high resolution television production, it still doesn't do it any justice. And the big thing that everyone's takeaway is if they ever get to attend the event in person, is how hilly the course is. It's amazing, the undulations of that course. I mean, to give you kind of a sense, the clubhouse is the highest point on the grounds, and Amen Corner is the lowest point on the grounds, and it's a significant elevation change between them from those 2 locations. So while it is beautiful and pristine on television, when you get there, if you ever get there in person, it is a whole nother level, and it is really unique in sports, as you said, how beautiful and scenic and pristine it is. The Augusta National Golf Club does a terrific job in maintaining perfection and excellence and beauty in that course. And it is unlike any other. I'm just glad that that we can bring that to fans at home, so they can at least get a sense as to kind of what it looks and feels like. And even then, we're only showing them a glimpse of what it actually is.
One of the things that you do bring to fans that you have been a strong proponent of and pushing is PGA Tour Live. That's another big property that you've been able to facilitate with ESPN and all the coverage they have on ESPN Plus and all the alternate streams. And you get the opportunity, as you were talking about, being how much you love golf personally and how much you like to play. When you're watching these pro golfers, whether you're on site or you're tuning into the coverage, what are you taking from these pro golfers that you're now implementing in your own game on the course?
I wish that it was that easy that I could watch with the thousands of hours of golf coverage that we do each year, watch and immediately be like, oh yeah, I should be doing that and apply that to my game, right? No, sadly, this ties back to the first part we were talking about with, I have 3 young kids at home, so I don't get out a whole lot, unfortunately, even though I live in Florida where you can get out year round. But I do find my ways to get out, particularly with some of our business partners at the tour and everything. Yeah, I get to watch a lot, but sadly, that does not translate directly to my game. I think I try and implement a few things, but it's amazing. You want to talk about a sport where they just take it to a whole nother level of how good they need to be in order to be successful. You look at like Scotty Scheffler this past year and winning what 6, 7 tournaments and winning $30 million or whatever what his take home was this year. It's unbelievable how good he was and how good he had to be in order to do that. Given how good his peers are and stuff. So it's something that when you, as a golfer, and I would use the term golfer loosely in my game, but when you kind of look at that side by side with what some of these professionals do, it is incredible how good they are at their craft.
Well, you're very good at your craft, and one of your colleagues that you work a lot with, John Lasker, would say the same thing, and I've had him on the podcast. Just a fantastic guy as well. And I think about even before you were at ESPN and looking at your resume, I see you working in sales to some extent as an account executive in the sporting world and whatnot. And I'm thinking to myself, what an interesting segue to ESPN, because if you're in sales, you're essentially pitching things, you're putting yourself out there, you're standing up for yourself. All of those things, I would think, as you transition to ESPN and you're putting yourself out there and standing up for yourself, where do you find that those traits that might have been the foundation of who you are from before ESPN have now matriculated into what you do at ESPN and have been very helpful to your success?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say working with people and how to communicate with external parties is probably the biggest skill that I was able to develop. So that was my first job out of college. To give you a little bit of background, I grew up the next town over from ESPN. ESPN's been in my backyard for my entire life. And growing up, it was something I always knew about. And I was fortunate enough to get over there and take tours and everything during grade school and stuff. And I was fortunate to do an internship there during my college years. But coming out of college, there wasn't an opportunity for me. So I stepped into the only thing that was available, which was a job selling tickets and doing marketing in minor league, sports for a minor league hockey team in Hartford. So, we all cut our teeth in this industry a different way, but we all have to get our foot in the door. And that was my way in. But as you said, it did give me some valuable skills as I was just starting that I'm apply to my job today in working with people and forming relationships and also understanding what is important to them when you're selling them tickets or trying to sell them season tickets or group tickets or whatnot. What are their priorities? What's important to them? And how can I tailor what we have available to that? And that kind of segues very nicely into what I do here at ESPN. And, a lot of what I do is about relationships and managing relationships with our external partners at the leagues and organizing bodies of these events and properties that we have, but also internally, because as you know, ESPN is a large company and there's a lot of people who need to be involved in implementing the coverage to the properties that you see on TV. So knowing how to form a relationship, knowing what's important to those groups, knowing what those groups do is extremely important to make this successful. So I think, those 3 years I spent at the beginning of my career in minor league sports gave me some valuable learnings and development that I was able to then apply to my role now at ESPN.
I love what you said there, because this idea of listening, everybody has an idea, but here you are, even before ESPN, you understand the value of listening and catering to your clients and how well that has suited you at ESPN. To that extent, when do you find it's best, or when the time is right, for beyond on top of listening to the client, but to then inject and say, hey, this is my perspective? When you feel like the time is right to do that, when would that be?
Yeah, I mean, so there's various different discussions that we'll have with external partners, right? It's sometimes it's trying to collaborate on something together and understanding both sides' priorities and point of views, and how you can kind of land on some common ground there. But then there's other times where there may be an issue that we have to sort out, right? Either something that we've done or that they've done that we need to rectify as part of the partnership. Or there are times where we want to do something and it might be a little bit outside of the overall parameters of our agreement with them, or just new territory sometimes. So it becomes important at that point to have a conversation, to listen, as you said, to understand their point of view on it, and hear them out and what's important to them, to then know, okay, how can we then do what we want to do, or do what they're looking for us to do in order to accomplish their priorities. So it definitely is a listen first, react second, a lot of times in our interactions. I do think that that's a necessary process in order to successfully navigate through some of the conversations that we have, and some of the things that we do together.
I would also think, as you alluded to, you're also an ideas man, and I think that to be outside the box in your thinking, there's also this. You talked about reactive listening, but then when is it right? Do you feel like when you're able to assert yourself and be the proactive one, and where you see yourself doing that?
Yeah, and I would say, this is not just limited to kind of my interactions with our external partners, internal as well too, right? Because there'll be times where I'll work with our production team, and they'll want to do something, or there'll be, we're trying to find a solution to how to do something, and working together on that is important in order to find the right solution to do that. So I will. I'll work with them, constantly on that, and we'll, I will. I've been here 16 and a half years now, so some of this is just institutional knowledge that you learn along the way, and it's like knowing when to inject yourself or knowing when to inject an idea. It just kind of eventually comes naturally. So, and also, as you said, we're always thinking about new things or new ways to do things or new ideas, right? So, being proactive is an important part of that. You can't just kind of sit back and let it all play out, or let someone else always go with the way they want to do something. Sometimes being proactive is important, to say, hey, I think this is a great way to do this, or this would be a great solution potentially to this problem. So I've learned over the years, and that's a trait that's developed and has become important to what I do, is proactiveness, and offering ideas and how to handle something can sometimes go a long way to achieving what either you want to do, or find a solution to kind of an issue that we're trying to sort out.
You have found a lot of solutions in your 16 plus years at ESPN. And I'm curious, John, how strong your memory is when it came to day one at ESPN.
Wow. I can remember bits and pieces of it for sure. Again, when you deal with in sports and events, right, it's about memories, right, and milestones and things. So I can definitely remember, when I first started ESPN, as a lot of people follow a similar path, is that there is time to develop, but also you're learning a lot of it on the fly, and you're being thrown into the mix right away. And if it's okay if you don't know it right away. You'll learn it, and you have a great support system. Fortunately, we're teams here, right? It's not about the individual; it's about teams. We work in teams, as I think in our group, and ESPN as a whole. So we're never alone, and we do this together. And I remember that first year, just I had a terrific boss and manager who supported me and helped develop me along the way. And now it's my job to pay that forward in my role now to those who are on my team and stuff, making sure that they're getting the support and everything to accomplish. But it's definitely been a long journey, and that first year I was just eyes wide open and ears wide open, and taking it all in, and learning and asking a lot of questions in those years. And some things I got right away. Some things I definitely did not get right, and I learned from that. And it's made me a better person now, 16 years later, as I'm into this. I still don't have all the answers, right? None of us do. It's still a learning. You're learning new things every single day, and applying new learnings to try and find new and better ways to do things. It's been a long journey, but I definitely remember my start day one, times were different back then, right? Like, people were consuming content differently. Traditional television is still king today, but was a different world back then, right? And now, in 2024, we're needing to think of new ways to distribute content and serve viewers, because the landscape has just changed so much, and people are consuming things so much differently. So it really keeps you on your toes, and going back to what we were just talking about proactiveness, needing to proactively think ahead to what we need to do in order to make sure that we're serving people wherever they're consuming content.
Going back to what we started this conversation talking about, as you said, there's never a dull day because of the changing landscape that is sports
Yes.
media and the ability for you to adapt. And we go back to day one and to see where you are now and look at you now. Yeah, you're always looking for solutions. That's an honestly a lifelong journey that I think we all have, that we don't always have the right answers. But as
Yeah.
you said, you've got a great team around you. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because you paid forward. And I think that's important for people to realize, is that you've done a lot and you want to help bring in that next generation. And I just wanted to show that. And as we wrap up this conversation, John, I have one more question, because not only are you getting support from your colleagues in the form of when you were first starting and that help was there, and now where you are now, and you've got people that have you've been there for to help them grow. Your wife and how she's helped you, supported you, loved you through this process. Where would you be without her in putting into words, if there are words, just how monumental and instrumental she's been?
Yeah, I mean, I could not do this without her, right? Like, to have a family and a support staff, and still being able to do what we love to do in our job, in our crazy world that requires us to work odd hours sometimes, or travel around the world because you need to be somewhere. I can't do that without her, right? So, what she has been able to do in both supporting me, but also managing our family on those times I need to, step away to handle something, or I need to jump on a plane and fly to Australia or something, or to Wimbledon, to be there for 2 weeks, and still know that my family, will be fine, because she's so great at what she does. It's immeasurable, the how important she's been to that. I try, and I don't say it enough, but I try and say we're a team, right? And I support her when I need to. Part of this job is I get home as soon as I can, and I come back so that I can then help her and supporting our family, and make sure that she can get, she has a career too, right? So she needs to be able to do that, and also be able to unwind a little bit when I get back from being away for 2 weeks at the U.S. Open. So that's not lost on me. It's important that I'm home when I am not on the road, and that I'm not just home, I'm available and here to support her, and spend time with my kids and stuff. So it's not easy. I mean, she says all the time, I don't know how some people at ESPN do this, right? Or how some families do it. There is no blueprint for it, and everybody has different roles and different responsibilities, and different, places they need to be and what they need to do. But I would hope that they have a similar strong situation that I have, where I have a great support staff and a great partner to help me out with that. So I can't thank her enough for that.
Be it the team at home, be it the team at ESPN, you carry with that championship pedigree. I look right over your head and it says champs, and I think about the champions at home. You talk about your family dynamic and your wife, and then even all the people you get to work with in what they champion, and that is success and growing the product and doing so many big things for so many sporting leagues. And it was such an honor, John, to have you on to sort of look into that world, but then also pry into what life is like outside of work. It's work, 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 but there's also 3 kids and a wife at home, and the ability to go that way as well with you was such a blast. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. And you say work, and it's funny. I always say to people, it's work, but it's fun. We have a blast doing this, right? Are so fortunate and privileged to work in sports. Like, growing up, I never thought that was possible. And then when I got to college, I realized it was possible, and to be able to marry your personal passions with your career, and do what we do, and get to the events that you and I get to go to and get to see and manage and work on. We are truly privileged, and it is work, but it's fun, and I couldn't be happier with where I've landed and gone. And I say to people all the time, you could be selling insurance and working out of a large office building in a cubicle and go home every day and not enjoy it. We're very fortunate that we do something that every day we enjoy doing. So it's really kind of unique about the sports business, and couldn't be happier with that.
Not only are you enjoying it, but I'm sure the viewer at home is enjoying it. And while they might take for granted the coverage, the content, the leagues that are on television at ESPN that you've helped build rights with, I just want people to sit back at home and think about the people behind the scenes that have made these viewing experiences possible. You are one, and your team, and you guys continue to do a wonderful job. John Suchenski, Senior Director of Programming and Acquisitions at ESPN. I'm Bryan Fenley. John, a pleasure. This was so fun. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks for having me, Brian.